plumbing truck and I'll snap a selfie of it and post it on my social media. It's a way for me to help advertise other companies. It's me doing them a service, collaborating. And then also for myself, just personal posts. Every day I wake up, I do a personal post of me in the gym showing motivation, because I want to motivate people. I want to inspire people. And so I add a little personal with a little business and just keep it as no drama, you know, keeping all of the personal aspects of my life out of it. Any emotions that I feel, I take that completely out. And anybody who does post anything emotional on there, I try to remove that, because I don't want that to be construed as something negative within myself or what I have the ability to provide for my community.
Nice, that's helpful. Someone else?
Sure, I want to challenge a little bit on as far as the negative, because there is a balance to, you post something, somebody posts something negative, may be viewed as negative. I think that's an opportunity to either address, educate, or just kind of show your response and your view to some of that stuff. I do this with Twin Star a lot. People are going to post, they're unhappy about something, they don't like something that we're doing. That's okay. Obviously, there is a line that can be crossed, and so that's one thing that needs to be dealt with. But when you're talking about somebody that might be negative or unhappy or something like that, I think trying to address from your viewpoints what it is that you're either countering with them or you're trying to show them, at least shows other people. It may not make that person happy, it may not solve their problem, but at least as other people go through and see those comments or see those interactions, they're gonna see where you stand, and that's gonna set a path onto who you are and what you stand for and what you believe. And I think sometimes that can also set you apart in that, as people will find, they'll either agree with that, they'll disagree with that, or they'll go, okay, that's a valid point, and move on, sort of a thing too. So don't necessarily be totally afraid to address some of those negative things and really kind of find where you stand in that, because it is a balance across the board.
Keeping it civil. Anything to add, Jenny? Okay, all right. Jenny, why don't you start us off then? What do you think are some of the most marketable skills that we should be sure to include on our resume, especially when we're looking for that first job?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's hard with the first job. Obviously, you're coming in, you're not necessarily having the specific job experience, but things like what you're doing today, the fact that you're a part of DECA is something that you should be putting on your job, on your resume or application. I think that sports that you're involved in, different offices that you might hold or have held at school and currently or in the past is important to put that on there. Things that you're involved in your community. So whether that is volunteerism that you've done or even just babysitting neighbors' kids, etc., that kind of stuff shows leadership. And so that is the type of stuff that I would have you put on your application, because that's stuff that someone that's hiring is going to be looking for, that's going to set you apart, especially for that first job, if you don't have any actual job experience to be able to put on there. So I think that if you have AP classes that you're in, that type of stuff, I would make sure you're noting that as well. Just those type of things. Simple. Who are you, right? And what are you interested in? What sports, like I said, do you play, leadership roles, etc. So.
Great, thank you. Anything to add? Any other marketable skills that came to mind for the other panelists? Jen, I liked what you said earlier, is just that daily commitment you make every day speaks volumes to an employer of the kind of commitment they can expect from you. And so while that might not seem job-related, it is certainly transferable and very job-related. So I really appreciated you adding that. How about if I just open this one up as well? How do you network effectively, both in person and online, with people who not only can help your career, but can help your life, like the whole view of your life holistically?
Networking can be really scary, I think, for some people, just because it is kind of putting yourself out there, right? You have to be willing to engage with people. I know that I'm a little bit of an extrovert, so it's a little bit easier for me, whereas my husband's an introvert, and he would hate going to a room like this, because it means that he has has to sit there and try to talk to people before the event starts, right? He's like just counting down the clock, waiting for that event to start. So, and I get that as an extrovert too. I understand that there are people that are uncomfortable. I think that the easiest thing to kind of get you past that is just being able to say hello and introduce yourself. I think that if you sit down next to someone, you know, ask them a question about themselves is a really great way to start. But I think that just networking is again, just building relationships as you're in a room with someone, and you never know, I think that the president said it, you never know what relationships are gonna come back to you later in life. As a small business owner now myself, I am actually benefiting from networking that I did 10, 15, 20 years ago, and those relationships that I built come back, and I'm getting business through those relationships. And it's really fun to engage with people in a different way. I think that networking with people online is a little bit different, obviously, because you know, the space of like social media connections that you can make. It's really kind of just sending, if you get, say you get his card and you leave here today with his card, it's maybe doing a follow-up email of thanking him that you enjoyed meeting with him, giving him a little bit of information about you and maybe your interest. And that right there might make it so that if you run into each other again in the future, or that he's thinking of, hey, I need an intern for something, that might be something that's in the back of his mind and it might benefit you in the future. So just doing little things like that, but it really is all about just engaging first, I believe, saying hello, asking questions, letting people know your interest in things. It's all about just relationship building. So it's just, you know, everything that you do in school with your classmates, you do that in the business world too, right? Just engaging and just building the rapport. And so you never know how it'll come back and benefit you in the future.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say on the networking side, a part of it is not always looking for what can you get from them, but what can you provide to the person that you're trying to talk to. It may be a job that I'd love this job, okay, I really want it, may or may not work out, and some of those other things. So trying to take some of the emotion a little bit away from it and look at, again, what can you bring? And even if you're not really sure, try to figure it out. And then I think the bigger part is just being kind with other people and how you interact and how you talk, because you don't know of the people that you're going to school with now could be your boss, or you could be reaching out to them, and unfortunately we remember how people treat us over time. So being a little bit aware of that some of that stuff does come back. So being kind to each other, providing value, and then again, just being open and willing to learn and be curious about the people that are in front of you. You may get nothing from somebody, but be curious about who they are. That can open up doors, and you just don't know where that goes in the long run.
Excellent point. I like that. Jen, anything else?
I just would like to add great examples of all of that, and I 100% agree. I think getting yourself outside the box. Find something about you that is impressionable, something that brings value to the table. So when you go to network with somebody, when I go to networking meetings, my value to bring to them is collaboration. What can I do for referrals for you? How can I help manage your business? How can I help grow your business? And that's the attitude that I bring to the table when I go to networking events. Or any type of marketing, connecting with anybody, and those relationships have lasted a really long time. Just as Jenny said, it's helping grow her business. It's doing the same for mine. It's helping grow the business that I'm in right now.
How about for any of you, do you belong to any outside organizations outside your company, and how has that helped with your career advancement?
I do. I belong to many chambers. I think Chamber of Commerce is super important. Chamber of Commerce, if you don't know, is a community of business leaders and then business developers that get together, and they do things that are positive for your community. It helps you get to know who is in your community. And then those kind of break off into smaller networking groups. There's quite a few different networking groups that you can be a part of. There's women's groups, there's industry groups, other types of business groups themselves, and finding and going to those, actually going, showing up, and finding if they're a good fit for you. So those, I probably belong to about 15 different networking groups myself.
Nice. Either of you?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at whatever you want to do professionally, there's an organization or association or something that is part of that, both in your area, but also nationally as well. And a lot of times they provide or offer conferences. And if you're able to go to those conferences, especially as a student, there's scholarships in a lot of cases that are available. And those are really great ways to network with other people, both in the field around where you live, but also to get to know people around the country. And again, it's just networking and getting aware of what's going on. I do a couple different things marketing-wise in my previous job and career. Well, a lot of recreation stuff, national parks, regional park stuff, intramurals, and things like that. And a lot of times, going to those conferences when I got to see a lot of people that I met and engaged with, and got to re-engage with them and hear what's working, hear what's not working. That's the time, a lot of times, where you talk and find internships, or I'm looking for this, do you know anybody? So don't be afraid of some of that stuff too, being a part of those associations and spending that time and a little bit of investment too to be part of that, because that can make a dividend in the long run.
Like David said, definitely a member of chambers, et cetera. I approach things a little bit different as well. Service is really big to me, and so I sit on boards. So if there's an opportunity for you to engage with a board, so for instance, I sit on the Capitol Soccer Fields board. My kids both play soccer. My husband coaches soccer, and so I sit on the complex board to be able to help the fields. And so that's just one example of a board that I participate in. And that, when you're sitting on a board, you get the makeup of the board members are usually coming from all different industries and walks of life. And so you definitely get to network in that way on a very different level as well. So it's not all about your business and what you're doing, but it's about the mission of what you're working for towards the board aspect of whatever that is, and that's where you can see some benefit as well as just networking with people, getting to know people, and engaging in the business world in a different way as well.
I like that. I like that. Before we go on to some of our final questions, I want to hear from you. What do you want to know from this panel who's, gotten their first job? They've achieved what maybe you're looking for. What questions do you have that could be beneficial to you? Yes.
In your guys' opinion, do you think in the next 10 years that AI will be a helpful tool or probably cause damage to our society?
Okay, so the question is, in the next 10 years, does the panel believe AI will be beneficial or harmful in our future world? Did I get that right? Okay.
That's a loaded question. I mean, crystal ball, who knows? I think right now, evaluating where the tools are that are ahead of us, so things like AI, there's a lot of people trying to figure out how do we utilize it, what is it going to do, how is it going to impact lives, careers, and things like that. I definitely think it's going to be a disruptor to some degree, but I do think, I personally view it right now as a tool to be used and utilized, especially when I look at like photography and some of the things that you can do with it now are like, oh my gosh, this just saved me how much time. I have the tools that I could do it otherwise, but now I can do it almost in a click. I think that's really neat. It is also a little scary when you start to see some of the things that are being done with it. I definitely think, though, it puts in an idea of skepticism as far as, is this real? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? And my hope is that it encourages people to do more research, not necessarily take everything at face value, and try to figure out for themselves what is the answer, whatever they're looking for, going to be the truth, if you will, which is going to be really challenging across the board. So that's a really challenging one to know, and even in 10 years, we don't know. I mean, in your lifetime in particular, technology has evolved so much faster than in my lifetime, and even then it was moving really, really fast from everything that didn't exist sort of a situation and then go further beyond. So I don't know. I think it takes a lot of people being aware of what's happening, to be conscientious and also be willing to think for themselves and make some of their own decisions.
Great. I think that's got a lot of valid points. And what I really heard there is the strong importance of developing your critical thinking skills. And so really honing in and making sure that you can use that skill within you to critically analyze what you're looking at. Either one of you have anything to add about AI?
If you're gonna use AI, please check it and make sure it's accurate. I think like was previously said, AI is an interesting tool right now. I think people, you said, are figuring it out. I think it does have a lot of benefits that you can see, but it's so new that I think you need to be checking everything. And I'm looking at your teachers. You probably shouldn't be using it for your schoolwork.
No? Okay. Another question. Yes?
What would be your biggest challenge in your career?
Okay, so the question is, what is their biggest challenge in their career?
Whoever wants it. Go for it.
I think there's, a lot of challenges come up in your career, right? The biggest challenge, I think for me, biggest challenge for me, like I said, I was in one place of business for 24 years. So I worked at the Port of Olympia. I was there. I thought that was my home. That was where I was going to be. I was going to retire from that place, right? Things change in life, and I think that you need to be ready to kind of, at times, reinvent yourself. I think you shouldn't be scared of the risk of what that means to take that chance. And so I think that that's the biggest challenge, has been the biggest challenge for me, is getting out of my comfort zone of like a job that I knew and I loved, right? I loved that job, but I knew it so well, I could do it with my eyes closed, like it didn't matter. But I think that just taking that chance and that leap and that chance on myself was very scary. It still is scary to this day, right? But I think that just that has been my biggest challenge, is really just betting on myself.
Nice. Anything you guys would like to add? David or Jen?
Sure. As somebody that, just like you, had to change careers, I've had a lot of different jobs over the years. You're going to have jobs over the years. You may even find the job you think is going to be the one you're going to do forever and you love it. And that is going to how you hopefully feel in the moment. It may change, likely will change, depending on what you're doing, because circumstances change. I think the biggest challenge is believing in myself, that I'm capable in learning something new and trying something new and doing something new. I didn't go to school for photography and graphic design. I literally YouTube Academied it and tried and failed and put myself in opportunities to try and fail, and have pushed myself and grown. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just you don't always know what you can do, but you're all very capable people. And there's more to you. So not putting all the stock in, if I get this job, that's who I am. There's more to you. So being aware of that, and then how do you fit everything around that, has kind of been a bigger challenge for me as I continue to evolve as a person, as a professional, and just kind of figuring life out.
Excellent.
For myself, I come from an insurance background, insurance adjusting. So the last position that I held was bodily injury. So I had to make a monetary value on somebody's life. And I didn't like that. That didn't make me feel good morally, because everything an insurance company wanted me to do was to pay as little as possible. How do you make that determination? So to flip and go from working in the insurance industry, corporate, to working for a small business and helping them grow, and also still holding that compassion with our customers who have had water losses in their home. Your home is the biggest purchase you'll ever have. And to have your home be damaged, and for me to be able to come in with compassion and integrity and fight the insurance company, that was a huge leap of faith for myself. I've known insurance for a very long time, and then to come into a business where it's a small business that's only been in business for 4 years. They are a $5 million company, and they're growing more and more. But they rely on me to make them grow and to help them grow. And so that right there, that challenge alone, getting creative, getting outside of your box, listening to what they have to say with their businesses and what they do for marketing and networking, and picking up little things, little traits about yourself that really accentuate you, and getting outside that comfort zone of yourself and helping yourself grow. That's huge.
I love that. I see as the common thread between all three of your answers was really investing in themselves and believing in themselves and not being afraid of the external changes that will and are going to happen in our lives. So really focusing on building that confidence and courage in ourselves. Another question? Yes? Okay, we'll go in the back first and then we'll come to you, okay? Go ahead, the one in the back.
How do you market a product to a company?
Okay, so the question is, how would you market a product to a company rather than to an individual?
Marketing is really interesting. So a lot of it depends. Depends on the product, and depends on who you're getting it in front of. So when you're looking at a product, you're saying, okay, I have this product, I see value in it, I feel like there's value for other people in it, so how am I going to get it out there? Well, I'm either going to market it to a specific business and say, this product has value and here's why. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do that, especially now when you think about social media. The hardest thing to do is get it in front of people and say, okay, I'm looking for this one person and I need to get it in front of that one person. Well, that one person's typically pretty busy. They don't always have time. They get these requests a lot. So how do I stand out? So when you look at how do I stand out, again, you have so many tools available to you with photo and video and just, again, storytelling. If you can, you're already selling this product in some way. If you aren't able to or currently selling it, you're trying to figure out how do I produce it, how do I get it out there, how do I sell it. So there's a lot of different variables to that. For instance, I started a business called Floorball Guru. It was about the sport of floorball, which is like floor hockey. It's played around the world. I've been able to travel the world and play it with the United States team. I was a coach as well. I love the sport. I love teaching kids. I saw value in it. So what do? I started writing a curriculum. I wrote a book ultimately. I taught in the local area kids how to play this, how to build this. I then evolved that into branding my own equipment and helping get people sticks in hands, if you will, and getting them learning the game and finding value in the game and so on, these other things. So sometimes it's a matter of you taking action and actually showing. And sometimes it's a matter of doing it in a different way, whether it's a video that shows what your product can do and offer, and then getting that out there and letting the world do the work for you in a way. But if it's a program and brand that you really love, you have to be the one that's banging that drum and trying to find different ways and be creative in the process. But know that you're talking about a 1 to 20, 30 year process, that it may take that long before it actually finds the people that see that value in it. So it's a big challenge for sure.
Thank you. And your question?
Was it more difficult to get your first job or to switch career fields?
So the question is, was it more challenging to get your first job or to change careers?
Go for it. I have to think.
I think changing careers was more difficult for me just because I was established in my other career, and so that was a bigger life decision, right? I got my first job I had when I was 15, so it was, scary, I think, to go into that first job interview, and that I knew that I was going up against other kids in my North Thurston marketing program, right? Like I was going as a work-based learning, is that what you guys still call it? Okay, work-based learning jobs, and so I knew that I was going up against other students that were my classmates and my friends, and I think that was just intimidating because you're walking into and you're sitting in front of adults, right? And adults are judging you, basically, asking questions and judging you. So it was more of an intimidating thing, but definitely more difficult to switch careers later in life. But I'm so happy I did, I'll say that. Yeah.
I want to end with one final question. For my panelists, I want you to dig back into that high school person that you were and then think about the person that you are now. What advice would the person you are today give to that person that was in high school?
I think for me is getting outside my comfort zone, going up to people and actually saying, my name is Jen, this is who I represent, how can I help grow your business, or how can I be of service? Instead of being intimidated. I was very intimidated by my peers. Even being up here is very intimidating. But having the conversations where you go up one-on-one, or even go up to a group of people and introduce yourself. Starting at an early age doing that breaks the ice for later and later, especially going into the business era, or into the business field.
Thank you, that's great advice.
Let's see. I was still an extrovert back then. So I think that I've always been a very curious person, and so I've always asked a lot of questions, and I think that and that has helped me, right? That's helped me in my career, build relationships, understand things, take on different roles within the company, etc. I think that I would give myself the advice that to ask more questions and be more comfortable in the questions that I actually had that I didn't feel comfortable asking. So just be curious, and I think that never stop being curious, never stop learning. I like to consider myself a lifetime learner, so I am always intrigued when I learn something new, and I get excited to learn about different industries and different jobs right now of people that I'm working with. I love to learn about what their career is, even if it's not anything that I'm doing. I'm helping them in a way, but it's not what I'm doing. I'm just really intrigued by that. So never stop learning, and ask more questions, be curious, stay curious.
I like that, staying curious and having the confidence to ask the questions that maybe we think, oh, do I want to ask this? Thank you.
I would say, I would tell myself to give my younger self more grace in who I am, and that to not fear failure, to not fear who I am, and that it's okay that you don't know who you are. It took me a long time to figure out who I was and kind of where I fit, versus like my wife. She was a teacher. She's going to be a teacher. She'll die a teacher. She will always. That's just what she does. I'm very different from that. I've evolved in trying to figure out who I am and what do I like and what's going to be there, and all those other things, and lots of different strategies. So again, being curious, being willing to try, being okay to fail along the way. I tell my kids regularly, I'd rather see you try and fail, because you will learn far more in that process about who you are, what you know, what you don't know. In the long run, it's going to serve you better. And so if I had learned that earlier, probably may have solved some problems for me down the road. But I think, where you're at and where you're sitting, there's so much to go, and it's okay. You'll get there. I guarantee you'll get there. Just keep trying, keep putting a foot forward, keep learning, stay curious, as you said, and you'll figure it out one way or the other.
I love that. Failure is a step forward, not a step back. That's really good advice, and remembering that we're on a journey. So today our panelists have discussed with us building our resume, being prepared for interviews, how to make sure our social media aligns with the goals that we have, promoting our personal brand, and networking. And the challenge I want to leave with you is see how many of the adults that have been on this stage that you can network with today while you're here, and then challenge yourself with how many people who are not here today that you can network with to share things that you learned today and keep spreading this knowledge. Would you thank our panel, please?